I went back a few slides from yesterday afternoon because I want the YouTubers to see the section we're in, which is not the last section, but this is the last two sections, exit and pay yourself, etc., are pretty quick. But this is the section we'll spend all day today on. Growth, working capital, internal financing, external acquisitions, so they could make note of it. But like sex, it all comes at the end, the last day in this extravaganza. And even though many of you are concerned or were concerned before you got here on this section, this is the easiest section. And by way of example, again, I hate to keep using Matthew, but he's already done this section. And Robert's done it too, but I mean, for the new blood, Matthew's already done it. And to illustrate how easy it is, Matthew did it. So, not taking anything away from him, notwithstanding he's an engineer. It is this. You got to do all the other stuff, and you got to have it within your comfort zone. So it's part of you to do this, but getting the money, etc., is the easy part. Providing the deal matches up. If you got a shit deal, it's harder. But every deal in this room, and there's a couple of challenging deals for external reasons why they would have trouble getting money, but every deal in this room can get funded someplace on the planet. And every deal that the idiot YouTubers, all the people that was listening, every deal that they have can get funded. I was listening to the news. First time I listened to the news this morning, I couldn't sleep. I got up every 45 or 50 minutes all night. I couldn't sleep. Thinking about today. Every 45 or 50 minutes I woke up. I looked at the clock. And I got to go back to sleep. At 3:05, Sally said, "It's time to take the dogs out." She was talking in her sleep. I had just gone to sleep 10 or 15 minutes before. But I said, "Fuck that passed quick." So I sat up like a fucking automaton. I roll like this, and I roll my legs out, and they hit the floor. And I go, "Oh shit!" And I started to stretch my neck a little. And I looked over at the clock. It's 3:05. And I look over at my wife. I'm going to give her a whack. And I said, "Fuck, it's not time." So I went back to sleep. I went back to sleep. It took me about probably 30 seconds. But I woke up every 45 or 50 minutes thinking about today, because even though today isn't really the most important day, in your minds, a lot of you think it is. And for those of you that haven't looked at How to Get the Fucking Money podcast and Deal Flow MP3, and I've told you that from the first day, I told you the second day, I've told you all the days. Look at that. How to Get the Fucking Money and podcast with a $50 billion man, and the MP3 Deal Flow. How do you create Deal Flow? Part of that MP3 illustrates we read some emails from some of the lawyers and accountants for some of my mentees that volunteered them Deal Flow, volunteered them finance, listed 10 fucking banks. This may be too many banks for you to see, but which one in particular do you want to see? Because that's their job. Part of not just if you use QLA, but today competition for lawyers and accountants is so fierce, they actually provide service, which they didn't used to do as much readily unless you kicked them. Now they realize if they don't produce service, you leave them. They're still not where you've got their home phones, but you have their cell numbers, and you can get a hold of them. Some not so much at the weekend in the UK, but you can get a hold of them a lot easier now. In the old days, like if a guy went to the Oxford-Cambridge Club, is it Oxford-Cambridge or Cambridge-Oxford Club? Okay. If you went there, they wouldn't take calls. I mean, if the Prime Minister called, maybe he could get through to somebody. But other than that, they wouldn't take calls. I don't know if it's any different now, but in the old days, if you went to your club, that was like sacrosanct. I mean, You weren't to be bothered.
So your wife can't find you.
Yeah, correct. That's well, I was just about to bring that up. So your wife can't find you. And in the old days, I'm sure none of your guys' fathers, because that's who I probably know, would have said this, but, dear, I'm going to the club. And whether they went to the club or not, she knew she couldn't get a hold of him anyway, so he was out fucking around or whatever he was doing. I went to the club. And so the Brits have been practicing this stuff for hundreds of years. They got it down pretty pat, you know. And some of the other European countries do it as well, but nobody does it as well as they do here in Britain. And that's why I liked it, and that's why I'm still here. And because I was such an anomaly 30 years ago, and some would say I'm still an anomaly, but I've enjoyed it. So today we talk about this, but on the news, because I haven't been watching the news because I've been focused on your guys and your in our private time meetings. I was listening to the tragedies that are going on in Yemen, and that I know the Saudis said they were going to bomb the shit out of them. Well, I was watching CNN this morning. They're bombing the shit out of them. I mean, they're blowing things up, killing a lot of people, which is unfortunate. Always there's innocent collateral damage. Always in all war, at least one or two Americans have been killed. Of course, the Americans worry more about it when the Americans start getting killed. And they're trying to evacuate out of Yemen. And I was trying to find my headgear. What's the knife called that they wear in their belt? Okay, there's a half-assed Muslim over here. But anyway, I couldn't find all my stuff. That the Yemenites gave me in Sana, and when I was a guest of the government many years ago, trying to do a big oil pipeline deal. And but now it's really tragic. They're trying to run out, and of course Saudi Arabia is concerned because they're right on the border there. And the last thing the royal family in Saudi Arabia wants is for this thing to spread into Saudi Arabia. I mean, so they are taking the offensive, along with 3 or 4 other of the countries in the Middle East, because when it happens to Mani, that's too bad. When it happens to Eric, that's too bad. But when it happens to me, that's 100%. So I take action. You know, it's like I told a story about Lee Trevino being hit 3 times by lightning playing golf. And so if it rains or if there's a cloud in the sky, he's not playing golf. Because as far as he's concerned, it happens to me, 3 times, 1 out of 1 billion or 1 million, whatever it is. So you think it's 100%. And when you go out and make presentations, and when you go out and find money, when you go out and you make your first acquisition, until it happens to you, this is all theory. It's all theory, you know. Even though you've heard me talk about it, you've heard Matthew attest to it, you heard Robert attest to it, but until it happens to you, it's all a bunch of shit in books. Not much different than you read when you were going to school. Except your professor wasn't using 4-letter words and probably hadn't done a bunch of what he's trying to teach you. Then when it happens to you, then all of a sudden you're geniuses. And you'll, I knew it. I always knew it. Even though you really didn't think it, because in your subconscious, because of lack of self-esteem, etc., that we've talked about for several days, you weren't positive. You wanted to believe that it would happen to you. And then when it happens to you, it's like all the dots get connected at once. A lot of things make a lot more sense. Just as Matthew has heard more information here, even though all the information are on the tapes that he's been listening to, more stuff has connected because I've given more examples, little vignettes, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I was thinking about it this morning when I was getting ready about the new Reflections and Confessions of the $50 Billion Man, which is the new podcast that I'm coming out with. And they've been working on the graphics and the art and what we're going to show. And I was thinking about the next one I'm going to do, because the next one I'm going to give, we already have the first one in the can. When they picked me up at the airport in Aberdeen, the new car picked me up, and they set up the GoPro cameras in the back, etc. Well, the next one I'm going to give, will be when I go to the airport in a couple days to Aberdeen, because that's when I'm going to do it, when I come back and forth from the airport, whatever airport that is. And I'm going to talk about the relationships I've had with a lot of these people. Of course, the Gazzos, Jim Newman, my brief interfacing with President Nixon back when I was a young Army officer, Howard Shenson, Coach Wooden, of course, my dad, and a few others. And Bob Guccione, the founder of Penthouse Magazine. And so there's a lot of them, and there's a lot more than these. These are the ones, guys and gals, that I've had the most impact on me. But I mean, there's probably 200 or 300 more. My brief interfacing with the Queen and a few others. So, and I'll talk about that, and I'll relate how I believe that has impacted me to be the high-performance person that I am. But one of the things, and I told you the second day, I believe, I meet a lot of people, senior people in their 90s and in their hundreds, because I want to know how they think, what they've experienced in life. And I'll relate many of those stories. My interfacing with Bob McNamara, former Secretary of Defense during the Vietnam crisis, that I believe came out of General Motors, or maybe Ford. Ford was hired by John Fitzpatrick Kennedy. Ken Langone, the billionaire, the guy that's underneath Mickey Gorman there, the founder of Home Depot, who's a friend of mine. Of course, Klaus, Rick Scott, sitting governor. So I have a lot to talk about. And as I told you, I have no intentions of interviewing anybody. And quite frankly, I'm not interested in anybody's opinion. Now, if I can talk to Ken Langone, and he'd sit in a car, but he won't because he's very busy. But so I'm not going to do interviews per se. I'm going to talk about people that I've talked to. So it'll be a one-sided conversation, me relating to how I related to them. In some cases, in Nixon's case, 1968, as a young, I might have been a first lieutenant at that time, young first lieutenant that was one of his guard detail when he was visiting here in Europe. Or in mainland Europe, actually. And he's a very nice guy. Of course, this is before Watergate, before all that stuff happened, when he ultimately had to resign. My brief interfacing with President Clinton. When he came to the university, I was on the board of many years ago. Actually, not so many years ago. And him talking. So that's what that will portray. And I'll be curious. I have my own opinion, as I told Eric last night when we were doing our private time, what kind of comments I'm going to get back from the people that listen to it. Now today, I've already asked you from yesterday, but I still see a couple of kilts sitting on tables out there, which leads me to believe that you haven't picked them up. There's no excuses if you're not wearing one tonight. So, for you melon heads that haven't, for whatever reason, they're sitting out there. Now I'm not going to go check the name and find out who it is. You better make sure that you're fitted out. Most of you, a lot of you, won't know how to put it on. And so when you've tested it to see if it's the right size, I'm skeptical, because most of you don't know how to put it on. You put it on backwards, etc. But we'll have a lot of fun. I would highly recommend all the guys you wear underwear, because when you sit down, your little 1 centimeter penis will show, which doesn't bother me. And well, maybe some of you guys will get off on it, especially the Englishmen, But I would highly recommend that you wear underwear. It may be the cheapest thrill that Rose gets during this experience to see you all. And you all sit the same. You all sit like this, which is quite interesting. And women sit with their legs together and or crossed. So we're looking forward to it. Ask a lot of questions today. We're going to do a couple more role plays. And YouTubers, thank you.